Hello. Today is more of a seminar in conceptual thinking than any sharing of concrete ideas or pre created thoughts. Um, I'm working on a class or a project for my class this quarter and thinking a lot. Right now, I'm thinking a lot about artistic mentors and inspirations, and I'm thinking a lot about Angela Davis's quote. I know I can. I'm no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I am changing the things I cannot accept. And again, thinking of art as a mirror for reality. Though again, it's not about what you say, it's not about what you do, it's about how you make people feel. My Angelou. So there are all of these conflicting, maybe on the surface conflicting ideas, but somehow the threads are interrelated, and how do I blend these together? I've also been thinking a lot about again, writing as a transformative act from Adrienne Maree Brown. That's something that she talks about. And also Shawn Wilson's mention of storytelling as a counseling tool, and how can I tell a story with the art that I make. And the concept of education as the answer. How can I create something that educates people or makes people think? And disruption causes change. Art can act as disruption, and therefore I feel the need to create something maybe disruptive, though is it disruptive? Is it, I don't know, natural or organic if I am doing this much like preconceiving of these ideas? I'm not sure. In class today, actually, there were like a few things that I thought were really interesting. The idea of art is not youthful. It's not just about decoration or utility. Art is not youthful. It contains a history. It contains these layers upon layers upon layers of thought and inspiration and ideas. I mean, from Notes on Photography and Accident by Moyra Davey, she was talking about like this idea of regurgitation, like writing as bulimia almost, because you consume these ideas and um sorry, Lynn's playing Michael Bublé. um these ideas of like we consume all of these ideas essentially and then regurgitate them back out. That's what art is, though we take the old and convert it, re-synthesize it into the new. And that's like the whole point of nonlinear thinking, is this idea of going back and reflecting and re-examining and building a deeper understanding of that topic, kind of like being in dialogue with not only yourself but the ideas of others that you've picked up along the way. It's like following the thread of where the mind wanders, repetition, interconnection of ideas, two seemingly contradictory topics, seemingly unrelated topics. There has to be a thread that's connected, and this is, again, more of Shawn Wilson and conceptually Robin Wall Kimmerer, the idea of relationality, and the fact that everything is connected, nothing is indivisible, especially all back to Shawn Wilson, talking about this idea that we as beings are nothing without our relationships. We as beings are made up of our relationships. And in that way, to neglect, to abuse, to ignore these relationships is to neglect, abuse, ignore ourselves. Doing a disservice to the things around us is doing a disservice to our own body. Doing harm unto others is doing harm unto ourselves, because there's always an interconnection. Whether the harm that you're doing is to another human, or the ignorance is at an idea, or I don't know, just not approaching things with an open mind, you're closing yourself into this box. And again, it's this idea of boxes that I've talked about before. Oh my god, there's a rainbow outside! I love spring. This happens a lot in the spring when the sun and the rain mix together. Okay, give me a second. I have to go take a photo to send it to my friend. Be right back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. You could see the entire arch of the rainbow. That's crazy. Okay, what was I talking about? Boxes? Yeah, I don't know. To close ourselves into these boxes is to divide us from others and from the world around us, and that is not the right way to live. Well, okay. I don't think there's any right way to live, though in my own work and I don't know, day-to-day life, I've come to learn that living in a divisible manner is not helpful for anybody. And it's this idea that, like, I mean, communal strength, communal resilience, and this is, again, something that is inadvertently talked about in Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer, but also more directly talked about in her new book, Serviceberry. The idea of the whole, and how coming together as individuals, sharing, well, being able to recognize the gifts that we each have, each bring to the table, and then how those build on top of each other, how they, I don't know, kind of like they can come together to build something so much stronger. And that's why the web of relationships is so important to pay attention to, because, I mean, if that web falls apart, we are nothing alone. This is something Orsola deCastro has talked about before, like a series of knots. Orsola deCastro is not the only one, though she's the first one I think I've read off the top of my head. There's this video of her and she's like crocheting or making lace or something, and she's describing like the series of knots is stronger than the individual thread. And it's so true. When you're crocheting, when you're knitting, you can rip a piece of yarn right in half, the individual thread, but you cannot rip a piece of crocheted fabric with your bare hands. Oh my god, do I ever get a break? But anyways, the idea of, well, one, this is also something that Shawn Wilson talks about, is these knots of relationality, and how tying these knots, like in acknowledging them again, being accountable to them, that's relational accountability, is how we build something stronger or better, so to speak. Not better. That's not the word I want to use. It's late. I'm tired. It's not that late. I'm not that tired. I'm just a little bit off in my own world, I guess. But I don't know. There's this idea of reciprocity that I need to acknowledge in my work as what? Okay. As well as by the rules of reciprocity, none can take more than she gives. I've taken in a lot. That was Robin Wall Kimmerer, by the way. I've taken in a lot of information, and I've done a bit of my part in sharing it with the presentation that I did last quarter, though I feel as a creative it is not necessarily a responsibility as more a need to do more, an obligation. If we don't consider obligation as a negatively connotated word, more as just like a civil obedience, I don't know, so to speak. But this idea of giving back, I don't know, and repetition and building on top of the old, the idea there's no singular truth. So how do we approach things with an open mind, with grace and curiosity, and have open communication, continue that dialogue, aim to understand, bring about depth? How do we become better honest, or better artists? How do we create a deeper inquiry and really investigate what lies underneath? There's this thing that we talked about a little bit in class today, this idea that moving away from the word creative and replacing it with the word honest, how does that connection happen? And I don't know, in my own experience, to create is to be honest. It is to confront the deepest part of yourself, perhaps. You can learn skills all day long, but to create is something else entirely. It's, what does that say? I don't know. But why, in order to create, the sky is just beautiful right now. It's like pink and blue. In order to create, you have to go through like all these different levels of thinking. And this is, what is it? It's like Bloom's taxonomy. I'm looking it up really quick. Framework for categorizing educational goals. But basically, okay, it's the idea that there are like these different levels of understanding or thinking, different levels of cognition, right? We have remembering, and then there's understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, creating. There's all these different words, like knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, evaluation. So, but anyways, in most of these, in all of these, creation is like the highest level of thinking. It takes the most brain power. It takes the deepest investigation. And in order to create, you have to be able to evaluate. You have to be able to analyze. You have to be able to apply, understand, and then remember. So it's, again, that's why it's often in that pyramidal structure. And I think perhaps that's why to be creative is to be honest, or why creating should be honest. Because you have to be honest in every step of this process. But creativity, again, in my own experience, comes from the deeper self. And so honesty within your own self, within your analysis of all of these works that inspired your creativity. It is a pure, unfiltered look at the world. Not unfiltered, but honest approach to reality. Again, it's back to this idea of art as a mirror for reality. So how do we... How can we create something that reflects the times, that gives back for everything that we learn, that how do we create something that summarizes everything that we've learned? How do we create something that disrupts the status quo? How do we create something that builds new?
Have you seen the sunset?
Yeah. Wait.
It's so much better on the right side.
To continue asking, oh my god. To continue asking abstract questions. Not abstract, just to take it. You don't like this, do you? Fuck off, I'm sorry. Okay. But this whole idea of, I don't know, creating something doesn't mean anything without I watched this video today, and it was like artists talking about outer space. And these are some quotes from it. This guy, Tom Sachs, he said, "It doesn't mean anything without a reason. Everything is difficult. Everything important is rare." Like, what does that mean? Everything important is rare. Everything is difficult. It's this idea to live is to suffer, which is something that Buddhism is founded by. It's this idea of, I don't know, capitalistic nihilism and tragic optimism, and this idea that everything is difficult, everything important is rare. You gotta like chew on it. Everything important is rare. It's rare to... I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I don't think everything important is rare. I think it's more so perhaps the ability to recognize the importance in everyday things. And this is again tragic optimism. The idea that we can, I don't know, look at everyday things and be appreciative for them. And this is Robin Kimmerer's gratitude as a radical act in a society that feeds on unmet desires. To be grateful is completely radical in the face of that. In some way, shape, or form, now that could be debated. This is just things as I know them. We are able to ask, but stupid to answer. Able to ask, but stupid to answer. And I think that's true. I mean, we as humans, again, a human life is so short in the grand scheme of things. Even in the grand scheme of a rock, let alone a planet, let alone a universe. So we are stupid to really think that we have the answers for everything. and this is again the notion of there's no singular truth. um Stupid, we can't answer. And going back to like art, not necessarily as, here, I'm gonna pull it up. What was it? Where is it? Art not as like argumentative, not as trying to convince people of an idea. Art without an agenda, or like, because art with an agenda, that's essentially propaganda. So more as artistic creation to pose a question, art as a critical examination of reality, outside of day-to-day language. Though I think language is an art form in itself, though that's my own opinion, that could be debated. Anything that we look at has a history. How do we look at it from our moment in time? Everything that we look at has a history, in the way that, this was, who was it? Trevor Payne said that. Yeah, this idea of like everything we can't. And this is, oh yeah, this goes back to Shawn Wilson again. It's not only the physical relationships that we share, but it's the relationships that we share that connect us throughout time, interconnecting across history and time, place and language. And that's another role of art. How does it relate, and how do we approach this question? Like kind of examining the complexity of everyday life. To live nowadays is not simple. It's very difficult to live a simple life. Though it seems simple, makes it seem, I don't know. We're living in nostalgia in that way. Again, these are all just ideas to chew on, to I don't know, chew on and swallow and digest and regurgitate, and then pick back up. And then there's in seminar today, someone said something, and it was like, yeah, we're trying to like suck all the nutrients out of this thing. And I was like, yeah, okay. Like, yeah, look at the regurgitated word slop and pick up the pieces that are left and redigest it and see what happens, and spit it back out, and I don't know, examine all of the flavors and expand on what you've learned from regurgitating this information and redigesting it over and over and over again. Creative research is indulging curiosity, and it's a transmutation of traditional research. It's this idea that, this is also more Shawn Wilson, this idea of informal research, but also research is as ceremony, and that's within indigenous paradigm, indigenous ontology, ontological lens. I don't know if that was the right way to say that, but like the things that we do every day are research in its own way, and in that way we cannot be divided from the things that we do. Again, that's like an artist is not divisible from their own work. They are completely complicit in the things that they are creating. They are complicit in the entire process, as well as all the steps that led up to it. And again, this notion of formal versus informal research is more boxes and, again, division. Do we, I don't know, like, when we look at research as this like formal institutionalized habit, essentially this very structured thing that only happens for tests for school. But when you open your eyes, open your mind a little bit to the idea of everything you do as research, everything you do influences everything else that you do. So of course, again, relationality, we are like indivisible. Where is that? What is it? Relationality. All things are related and therefore relevant. All things are related and therefore relevant. And so of course, the things that you do in day-to-day life are going to influence your work in day-to-day life. We cannot separate it. It's silly too, because that's not how the world works. It's how maybe the world tries to condition you to think, though perhaps it might not be the right way. Because if we look at nature lives in a reciprocal manner, in an indivisible manner. Very much, this is more Robin Wall Kimmerer. The idea of these, in the chapter in Braiding Sweetgrass, the three sisters, she talks about the three plants, what is it, corns, beans, and squash, and how when they come together as the three and share their gifts with each other, they all flourish so much more than they would if they were trying to grow by themselves. And not only can we connect this to the adverse effects of monoculture crop, but again, the idea of we all, like, that's why we do the things that we do, is for our own, not only for our own growth, but to share these gifts with others furthers their growth as well. Respect one another, support one another, bring your gift to the world, and receive the gift of others, and there will be enough for all. The beauty of the partnership is that each plant does what it does in order to increase its own growth. As it happens, when the individuals flourish, so does the whole. So to consider not that we as humans are divided from nature, but shifting the idea that we as humans are a part of nature and are reflected in nature, and maybe our habits, we should be reflecting the habits of nature, because of course we come from Mother Earth, so we are not divisible from her, and the way that we treat her is kind of abhorrent, to be honest. So no, we are not divisible from that, and neither is our work. And that's why, I guess, to the aim of what I want to do, I'm like, okay, I've been given all of these gifts, all of these little seeds of knowledge have been planted, and they've been growing, they've been germinating, they've been sprouting, and now there's like a bunch of plants, and I'm like, okay, what do I do with all of these guys? The reality is, I just need to, like, I don't know, turn it into a bouquet. But really, okay. Again, transformation cannot be accomplished by tentative waiting at the edge. And so how do we jump into the pond? How do we examine the self in relationship with the world, the physical world, the conceptualized society, and all of our history together? How do we examine these things at the same time and synthesize and create them into something bigger, something more? I don't know. In standardized education, we are very much conditioned to turn out the same thing, regurgitate information in the exact format that we digested it, not necessarily adding anything new to it. But the reality is, the food that you're eating does not look the same as the food that you're throwing up. So why are we expected to throw up a perfect hot dog because that's what we were given? That's unrealistic. And that's, again, what we're taught to do. Does anyone find anything wrong with that? It doesn't seem quite right. Why are we not? We're taught to regurgitate what is told to us. We're taught to sit and listen and repeat. But really, that's not furthering anything. It's not helping anyone, ourselves, our future generations, if we are just trying to remember. If we're like, what was all of this work done for if not for us to build on top of? Not necessarily build in a certain direction, because we're diverting from the notion of linear thinking, but how do we build on top of, or not build on top of, but create something in dialogue with everything and everyone that came before us? Every influence we've ever had, any interaction, any book we've ever read, any movie we've ever watched, any song lyric we ever heard, how do we create something that synthesizes all of that? I don't know. I don't have a question for you today, but I did ask enough questions that I suppose, I hope at least your mind is jogging a bit. My mind is jogging a little bit. In closing, how can we take everything that we have learned, everything that came before us, and hold it in congruence, connect it to everything that is the now, that is reality as we see it, that is our present moment, that is our daily experience as humans? And how do we in turn create something that acknowledges, encapsulates all that came before, as well as giving back to those things in acknowledging them and giving forward, I guess, to the future generations so that they might build upon the things that we create. That was convoluted, complex, but so is the world. It's not gonna come to you sealed in an envelope real easy to open. You might have to do a little bit of higher order thinking to figure that out. Yeah, not everything should be easy. we learn the value of the things around us through coming to understand how much work, effort, and energy goes into them. And to be grateful for those things is a daily practice that I could not recommend more highly. And it may seem minute and repetitive after a while. And gratitude is a radical act. I'll read you the passage, actually, because I have it right with me. Robin Wall Kimmerer's Braiding Sweetgrass. While expressing gratitude seems innocent enough, it is a revolutionary idea. In a consumer society, contentment is a radical proposition. Recognizing abundance rather than scarcity undermines an economy that thrives by creating unmet desires. Gratitude cultivates an ethic of fullness, but the economy needs emptiness. Gratitude doesn't send you out shopping to find satisfaction. It comes as a gift rather than a commodity, subverting the foundation of the whole economy. Okay. That's it, dear friends. I hope you all, if you listen to this, have a wonderful evening. Chew on these thoughts a bit. But don't copy them. Well, you can. Copy them to build off of them.